Hello, lovely podcast people. I hope you're well. This week, if you have looked at, this episode, if you have looked at the length, is a huge episode, an hour and a half plus. So this one, it's another guest appearance. It's me with Paul Dermody, and I enjoyed recording this podcast so much. It was so good chatting with Paul, and we covered an absolute, just such a range of topics. It's kind of unbelievable, and on every single one, it feels like we could have recorded a whole episode. So anyway, I just wanted to give a bit of an intro for you and tell you that the metabolism series is coming up. I'm doing a bit more planning on that one. It's going to be a good, probably more episodes in the creatine episode. I'm going to try and keep them short, but a good few episodes. So much to cover around metabolism, speed of metabolism, rate of metabolism, dieting, reverse dieting, metabolic damage, everything. And so I hope you're really going to enjoy those. I'm going to do a good job on those for you. I'm going to do a little episode on BCAAs because I've had quite a few comments. So I might just throw that one in quickly before we start the metabolism theory series. And I'm also just going to do a couple of mini episodes on MNU. Really just to explain, I guess, some of the industry questions around MNU as a qualification or nutrition qualifications in general. Nutrition degrees, dietetic degrees, nutrition certifications, insurance, what you can and can't do, kind of answer some questions for even people who don't want to do MNU, but maybe are interested in working with a practitioner from MNU and kind of understanding what the hype. Why is an MNU? Why do people rave about MNU certified nutritionists, or why do people rave about MNU? And is that something that can help me? So anyway, I'm just going to answer a few of those. And hopefully people who are considering MNU get some good answers straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. Anyway, I will leave you to this epic episode. For those of you who have been asking me for longer episodes, here it is. It's, I've been a bit lazy and not recorded this myself, but you get the chunk of me talking. But it's really nice. Paul gives some cool insights of his own as well. He's a deep thinker, so it's nice to have him included as well. And Lucy has actually boosted his sound for you guys. So we've gone to a lot of effort. I hope you enjoy it. And let me know what you think. Cool. Much love. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for doing this, man. I really appreciate your time so much.
Yeah, very, very welcome. I can't actually see your video. Is that normal? I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to.
I'm seeing...
Yeah.
Should be better?
I can see you now, yeah.
Perfect. Look, first and foremost, I told you before we went on, I'm going to save exchanging pleasantries and do it now. So first, thanks for your time. Very, very grateful.
You're very welcome.
You are running a world-renowned evidence-based nutrition course. So, and I believe, if not mistaken, a double check, over 65 countries in the world, so you know a thing or two. And I haven't been doing these many interviews with fitness personalities or professionals or influencers or people of influence lately as people do it better. But when I had the opportunity, and when you very kindly agreed to do this one, I thought it'd be a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No, you're very welcome.
Yeah, so I would like you to give a very quick introduction, if you don't mind, on the intent behind what you're trying to do with your course.
Oh, cool, yeah. Also, just to say, I like that. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say people of influence. That is a much less dirty way of saying influencer. I think the word influencer has become a dirty word, right? But person of influence, that sounds grand and honourable. So I like that.
Well, I mean, when you have over 100,000 followers, you're going to be influencing a number of people without adopting the title of influencer is more of the point.
Yeah, definitely. I'm often asked if I do media interviews. Oh, are you okay with us calling you an influencer? Do you identify in that way? Like they literally have to ask you now because it's almost an insult sometimes. But anyway, sorry, onto your question. So yeah, Mac Nutrition Uni, our course, is the reason behind it really, and I feel very, very lucky, I suppose, is the simple way of putting it. You know, lots of people don't like admitting to luck or admitting to privilege or admitting that it isn't all down to them. But I do feel extremely lucky to be the person that, for whatever reason, the industry was crying out for exactly what I could offer, and that I was in a position to offer it, because there are loads and loads of evidence-based practitioners now, which is amazing. And there were loads and loads of evidence-based practitioners before me. And I don't know exactly who who listens to your podcast, and I'm sure it's kind of wide-ranging in its demographics. So sometimes people wonder, well, what is evidence-based? I got asked by a social media marketing expert that I just had a conversation with once. He said, why do you write evidence-based? Isn't all nutrition evidence-based? And I was like, oh my goodness, that's a can of worms. But there are lots of evidence-based individuals out there, and people who wanted something that was deeply rooted in science, but that used what most people in this realm understand to be evidence-based, which isn't just there has to be a paper to prove it, but it also takes clinician or practitioner expertise to understand the methodology that's used, etc., etc. But also people crying out for a course that taught people what they needed to know to help people. Not just over-sciencing stuff, not kind of, there's this term I use, mental masturbation, which is essentially what lots of people on social media and internet forums and Facebook groups like to do, is just discuss the absolute nitty-gritty of everything to the point of mental masturbation. It's just enjoyable to do, but it doesn't really serve a greater, higher purpose. So it's quite a cool phrase. But we wanted to put into this course everything that was practical, everything that you needed to do with clients, to even the tone you use to talk to them, to the how you set up a consultation, even talking about the environment of your consultation and how that works, as well as obviously a deep understanding of the biochemistry, but not an unnecessary level. And also along the way that it was taught by appropriately qualified individuals, but not just a qualification, not just qualified, but also people who had years of experience working with practitioners and years of their own reflective practice to bring to the table of, this is what works, these are mistakes I made, this is how this fit into a business plan. Not necessarily like a business plan you take to the bank, but this is just the conversations I had with clients about, someone came to me with this goal, and even just discussions around, well, I told them, this is the level of input I'm going to need to give you. And this is my time commitment to doing that, to supporting you on that goal. And therefore discussion just around payment, because very often you go to university. Personally, I did many, many, many years of university and came out with very, very little in the way of practical understanding of how to talk and work with people, and absolutely zero understanding of how, if someone doesn't employ me with a job, how do I actually have a business? How do I become self-employed? How do nutrition services get advertised, etc.? So we put that all into a course, and it took over most of my life until about, well, it still sort of does. And but I'm very proud of what we created, and something that I thought was just a it was people that I had already mentored who were asking for this course. And the people I'd personally mentored at that point were few and far between. It was maybe 200 professionals. I had taught and lectured and guest spoken, plenty, but not mentored. And so it's when it was just 200 people, to then become a course that is, when we released it, it just went ridiculous. It went crazy. I had to close every other part of my business and everything to account for it. And so it's cool that it's gone so well, and I'm really, really glad the way it is seemingly changing the industry for the better, I think.
And you said there on mental masturbation. Obviously, you have been in the science for God knows how long, and even dummies like me can understand everything that you say on Instagram. So if that's the case, and I'm trying to put my best foot forward as practitioners, it is such a pointless race to the bottom to be sitting there with your metaphorical penis in your hand trying to impress other practitioners and confusing the people that need us the most. Actually, speaking of laymen or people like myself, dummies, I believe is the word I use, but you do have a the Layman's School of Nutrition coming out soon, right? Or is it out now?
No, yeah, it's not out yet. We're hoping, unfortunately with COVID, it's really set us back with regards to being able to, I mean, just everything with regards to the pandemic, it's made business. Lots of people have kind of said to me, oh, you know, as a majority online business, you know, it can't have affected you that much. And I'm like, oh, the lack of understanding you have of how much impact it has on business owners is crazy. The amount of change we've had to do internally, but also, I suppose, as an ethically run business, we have gone above and beyond, which in my opinion, is nothing super virtuous. It's just what the half-decent human being would do, or half-decent business would do. So, but it does take a lot of time supporting people through all the impact that the pandemic has had on them. So it has set us back a bit, but we do plan to release it this year in 2021. And yeah, again, that's an interesting one because MNU went so big. I was so surprised that probably, I would say, 10 to 20% of everyone who was doing MNU wasn't even doing it because they wanted to become an MNU certified nutritionist. They didn't want to become an insurable nutritionist that could work with clients. They were literally doing it for self-study. And it blew my mind because it's a very in-depth course. It's not a Groupon course. It's not something that you just go, oh, I'm going to learn how to, I'm going to do a cake decorating class, you know, and then you do this via a Groupon thing. It's intense, and there's exams at the end, but people were doing it just for self-study. But they were also learning stuff that was specific to people who wanted to work with clients. They were learning, like I said, about behavior change and consultation techniques, and not behavior change from how to change your own behavior, but how to have discussions with someone else about them changing their behavior. So they are different. And so yeah, the demand for a course that was specific to people who wanted to essentially be their own nutritionist, be their own coach, have a good understanding. And I think that's some of what you said to me you wanted to talk about today. It's having a robust basic knowledge so that you are less likely to be misled. And so that's what the course will be designed to do. And again, I just hope it's something that so many people can do, because it will protect them against this huge array of misinformation that exists on social media and the internet.
There's definitely a market for it. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that. I think back to when I was a little bit younger, 7-8 years ago, say, and the quest for body composition was quite the minefield.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something you've actually said recently. I'm sure you've been saying it years. You specifically did mention it in a podcast, and it was something I had specifically wanted to talk to you about today. Anyway, cool. Cookie cutter plans, right? Cookie cutter meal plans, and more of the cookie cutter mindset. I know, and I work with some incredibly intelligent people, Martin. I'm talking people who run big businesses, people who do good shit in life.
Yeah.
And the nutrition element just doesn't seem to click in life.
Yeah.
And often what I find is it's the inability to just be able to explain for themselves from first principles. For example, I always kind of encourage clients to think that one faulty train of thought is going to disrupt the entire thing. So if you go into your new diet, even if it's the best calorie plan in the world with the same kind of broken rules as the last diet, or for example, thinking that carbs are bad as opposed to carbs perform a different role in the body, that's going to screw you as soon as you're in a social thing. So I want to talk about fundamental importance of understanding things from first principles. So you're never going to be led on the primrose path of bullshit ever again.
Yeah, so it's it is funny that you say that. It's so true that these high achieving, like you said, very intelligent individuals, kind of critical thinkers, lateral thinkers, when it comes to nutrition, I don't know if you've seen the meme or the image, but it's like someone, they basically saw their head off, take their brain out and put their head back on. Have you seen that one?
No.
But for me, it's like, that's exactly what happens when it comes to nutrition. These very intelligent people, they stop using their brain and they just believe anything they read, essentially, because they don't necessarily, maybe don't have a basis for their knowledge, or there's too much ability to have personal experiences which blind us, because as humans we do have this issue that when we observe something, it changes an opinion, it creates a feeling. And so if we observe, we don't necessarily need to know the principle behind it. So I talk about principles and methods a lot, and if the method might be, you mentioned carbohydrate there. The method might be that someone took carbohydrate out of their diet. Even if it wasn't an initial thing, it was just, oh, I went on holiday and ate less of this food or ate in a certain way, and this happened to my body. And they see this, they create their own method, and they don't need to know the principle. They just go, well, if I do that, that happens. But then they don't understand some of the unintended consequences of what they might be applying. So they come back to their normal life and they can't eat that way, and it doesn't support the functions that they need in their daily life. Even to the extent of maybe they're getting less sleep in their daily life. Therefore, that changes how our body reacts to stuff. So it's very, very difficult if people don't have any underpinning knowledge to understand why stuff occurs, even to the point of who to listen to on social media. Like, why should people listen to me? Why should people read my posts? You're just another person with an opinion. And I get that. Sometimes people tag me in a post and go, Martin, explain to this person. And I'm like, there's no basis of respect to respect my opinion. I can go and I can explain something to them, but someone can equally go and explain the opposite to me and make up pseudoscience that just sounds good because they start with a faulty principle, for instance, that the person can't see that the principle's wrong. They just make links like, well, carbohydrate makes you release insulin. And you've got to think, if you eat lots of carbohydrate, you'll release lots of insulin. And your body doesn't like that. And then your body says, oh, I don't like that insulin, so therefore I'm going to become insulin resistant. And that's why you shouldn't eat too much carbohydrate. And someone listening to that goes, yeah, that makes sense to me. Who says you're right, Martin? And I say, well, because I can show you literature, scientific literature, the actual studies that show that's not true. And that the other person might go, well, no, look at this study. This study showed that people who eat a typical Western diet are most likely to become insulin resistant. And we all know that the typical Western diet is high in carbohydrate. And again, the conversation just goes on. And then you go, well, no, look at the study you're quoting. Typical Western traditional diet is high fat, high carbohydrate, lowish protein compared to what we might consider an optimal, if there is such a thing, protein intake. And the quality of those carbohydrates and even potentially fats are not good. It's not a high carbohydrate diet. It's not a traditional ancestral, if people are comfortable with that word. I'm not trying to push anyone towards paleo eating, but a traditional ancestral, if people believe or are agreeable to the idea of evolution or those kind of things. We know, we can even look at cultures that are still eating in a very traditional way and eating lots and lots and lots and lots of potato and are not becoming insulin resistant until they add in the westernized junk food, combine boatloads of fat with boatloads of refined carbohydrate and sugar and make things super highly palatable, and also eat in an energy excess. So it's very, very difficult, and I have a lot of empathy towards the situation and understanding of, I get that people are struggling to understand who to believe and what to do. But if you can get to a situation like with your clients, where they clearly respect you and clearly are coming to you for guidance, it's then your duty, or our duty, or practitioner's duty, to then give them the right information and not put any of our own, I suppose, biases onto people, or certainly lots of individuals get into the industry because they maybe previously had disordered eating patterns, or like you said, some of us have come from a background of this unending pursuit of body composition, and we've gone down lots of different avenues and been misled and this, that and the other, and not then putting some of our own food issues, I suppose, onto our clients and leading them down the wrong roads. And that's why it's so important to be evidence-based, because there are these unintended consequences of, you demonize carbohydrate, and it may make someone lose weight in the short term, but the long-term impact is potentially you're putting them in a worse place than when you found them.
It's just, you say that about the bias, for sure. It's actually something that I've inherently probably taken from you the most on social media, is intelligent bias. And I think you tongue-in-cheekily, or else seriously, say that your bias is making you stupid. And I'm sure that there's a massive degree of certainty to that. How do we, as practitioners, stop our opinion affecting people? Because sometimes it's not actually cookie cutter information which tend to make a profit. Sometimes good human beings with strong biases just give projection of their own fear of certain foods onto their client. How do we evaluate our own role of our own bias in our careers?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't necessarily have a fully evidence-based answer, and I'm not going to base this on any other literature. I'm just going to give my opinion, so I'll just preface the answer with that.
Martin, my internet is really bad. Do you want to knock your camera off and see if it makes any difference?
Yeah,
sure. Not quiet playing up.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, better already, I think.
Is it? Okay, cool. That's okay. Can you hear me better? And
yes, I hope so.
Oh yeah.
Carry on and we'll find out.
You're actually, your sound has got a lot better on my end, so I'll leave it off.
Perfect.
Great. So yeah, just in case you didn't hear me, I said I'm going to preface this is just my opinion. And it's funny, this is one of those things which I guess if I'm really, really brutally transparent, I'm actually very, very proud that it's my thing a bit. And it's not something I ever worked on. It's not something I ever, which I guess in a way it's just nice, isn't it? It's like, people say this about you and, you didn't even work hard for it to happen. It's just like, that's me. And when I first started becoming a bit of an industry mentor to people, and, someone as famous as Danny Lennon, who, has one of the best, most well-known, most listened to nutrition podcasts out there, and is a great practitioner and everything like that. He came to my first ever mentorship weekend where I was mentoring other professionals, and he was very kind in his words, and still is to this day, in terms of I went on that weekend and it really enhanced my critical thinking. I think I often quote him saying he because it was just a great analogy that he used of starting to go down that critical thinking route and considering my own bias. What did he say? It increased my learning gradient, were his words. And rather than it's almost being able to ignore what's definitely not worth considering, allows you to spend more time and more focus on what is important, but also being able to recognize your own bias makes you better at learning. And how do we not put our own bias onto other people? It has to be a conscious effort. And that starts with acknowledging that you have bias. People are so quick to go, I'm not biased. And that's just categorically incorrect. You need to understand that you cannot not be biased. You can try and not be, and you can spend time and make effort towards not being biased, but you will always have inherent biases because of your own personal life experience and your own understanding and everything about you as a human. The country that you live in, the people you surround yourself, they will all change the filter through which you see the world, through which you absorb information. So, I'm very proud that through MNU, through our mentorship, through all of my teachings, people often come away and go, I've become a much better critical thinker because of Martin MacDonald. And it's not something I set out to do. It's not something I write in aims. It's not something I advertise to try and get people to come and hear me speak. But it just happens inherently. So I'm like, it must be something about me that's happened in my life or whatever that's caused me to teach in this way, to elicit that response in individuals. And therefore, because of that, we talk about identity-based behavior change often. And some of that is just the way you speak about yourself. So I speak about myself. So if someone says, talking about kind of exercise routines, like, my personal trainer tells me to go to the gym 4 times a week, versus someone who says, I'm someone who goes to the gym. I go to the gym to lose weight, or, I love the gym, I go to the gym. I'm someone who goes to the gym. It's a different way of even speaking about yourself in terms of, that's who I am. I'm someone who likes to exercise, who does it out of choice rather than necessity or that kind of thing. And in that, just speaking about myself and having that identity there, I therefore put more into it. So even this is why some people as teachers, and I suppose this is some good feedback for clients, for practitioners working with clients and clients themselves. And I'm sure you're aware, I love being a parent. I have always loved children. I worked in or volunteered in creches for years and years and years, but most of my life. And I love being a dad. And so in terms of parenting, how you speak to your children makes a huge impact on them, that it's scary because you're basically changing someone's destiny by having a child, and therefore it's a big responsibility, and some people will be freaked out by that. And but how you speak to your children and the compliments you give them can have lasting impact. So I can't remember who it was, but someone quite famous essentially said they were told, I can't remember who it was, I'll say Jenny. Jenny is so amazing at remembering people's names. And because that was said about her, she was like, I got a compliment. I do remember. But then actually puts that into her personality, and it's her identity. I'm someone who that's expected of me. I'm going to make more effort. I'm going to really try and remember their name. And then it just becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. And so how you speak to a client, how you speak to a child can often become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I've gone a bit off topic, but in terms of bias, acknowledging that bias and understanding that if you say stuff without a critical mindset and you put that on your client or whoever you're mentoring or coaching, guiding, it can have this kind of lasting impact. And so questioning your own bias. And one thing for me that I would love to see people, I suppose being more open to opposing views is one thing. Being more open to disproving their own beliefs. And beliefs are bad in science. I read, someone sent me something the other day that they were like, look at this lady's misleading people. She's got thousands and thousands of followers. And everything she said was, I believe you shouldn't ever eat fruit at this time of day. I believe that this causes this. I believe. And everything she wrote, I believe. And I don't know if I think she was Australian. I don't know if legally she was trying to protect herself by saying that, because if it's a belief, you can go, well, I can say what I want. It's just my belief, rather than stating it as a fact. But straight away, if you see someone saying, I believe, like nutrition isn't a religion. People turn it into a religion, of course, but it isn't a religion. It's not faith. It's a science. It's nutrition science. And as long as you and I are having a discussion based on a paradigm of science, And you have to understand that if you're talking to someone who is eating in a certain way because of ethics or a philosophy, you have to have a discussion on ethics and philosophy, not science. That happens often with veganism. If it's someone's ethical or moral decision, you can't say it's wrong. But they also can't put that on you, because different people, different countries, different cultures have different ethics and moral standards. Not up or down, but just what's the norm, I guess. But when we're talking about nutrition science, it's a science, and therefore we look at data and we look at science and we understand what we do know and what we don't know, and what has definitely been disproven, etc. So if people could just get this thing of like, try and disprove your own belief, your own understanding, what you believe to be true based on data, hopefully. And a big one in that is the whole anti-diet world, the whole weight stigma, the whole people just discussing how the whole area of weight loss. And straight away, when you're a personal trainer or nutritionist or doctor who helps people with weight loss, and people go, do you know there are unintended consequences of your clients intentionally losing weight, and that you might be damaging them? The initial gut response and your bias and your critical thinking goes out the window. You just go, no, you're wrong. Don't say I'm bad. I'm trying to help people. My motives are good. Instead of going, interesting, why is that? And listening to the other side of the story. And so, people need to know their bias. And your bias when something, for instance, is your Instagram handle or your website or your career. It's very, very hard to get round it, but it's super important for people to just go with this idea of, I'm biased, and just be more open to learning. Every Instagram post I do, I get comments going, yeah, but instantly I know they're not there to be teachable. Like, just listen, just try and understand. Like, as someone who's speaking on a topic, I probably have earned my right to have an opinion. You are whatever your job is, accountant, with an opinion on nutrition, great, but your extent of reading is probably not to my level. Not trying to be arrogant, it's just a factor of the fact that this is my whole life career. But this whole yeah but thing, I have an opinion and I want to be heard, and this is what I believe in and feel and have seen, and this is that, rather than just going, maybe he's got a point. I've bothered to follow this person and read his Instagram post. Let me sit back and see what is he trying to say, rather than I see something that immediately challenges my current belief, therefore I'm just going to fight back and not listen. Like, people just don't learn. I think I put that on my story, which you've quoted. Your bias is making you stupid, because they just cannot learn and see past it.
And in terms of the bias, that's such an important and like the weight stigma, the health at all size one, is a very important one. For example, I'm not going to go onto your page and start debating you in scientific literature. I don't think it's a fruitful endeavor. It's not something I'm as well informed on as someone like yourself. So I find understanding the limitations in your own knowledge is fundamentally key. I recently got a request to prep someone for a bodybuilding competition. I haven't competed in 6 years. So, I don't know if this is a wrong train of thought, but I haven't kept up with one single piece of potential literature since I competed. I did a bloody water cut and a water load to my show, and I'm pretty sure that's the daftest thing you can do. So I haven't kept up any kind of information. I'd fuck someone right up if I took them to that level of competition prep. So I consider myself to be teachable 100%. The unfortunate thing, I always kind of remind myself, falsifiability. You could be wrong. This could be wrong. Don't get too attached. But there seems to be a small minority of extremely angry anti-diet voices on the internet. And the only reason I take exception, and I'm really curious to hear what you think on this, even if it is personal opinion, I've had grown adults cry tears for saying, this is the first time in 30 years that I've eaten the family dinner happily, as if I wasn't doing something wrong, or this is the first time I took my wife for dinner spontaneously without tracking the bloody thing because I was afraid I'd wake up the size of a house the next day. And these are all very, very innate fears that become toxic. So I have a tremendous compassion to why you would think dieting is wrong, but toxic dieting is wrong. Not understanding the principles is wrong. And I mean, genuinely, hang me out to dry if you think I'm getting this wrong, but it's becoming the opposite side of the argument thing to the thing they claim to hate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just an extreme belief, an ideology, not as you say, there's no belief in science. It's not even consider this, evidence would suggest this. It's more of a all intentional weight loss is bad, practitioners pushing it, need to sort their shit out. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. And yeah, I'll kind of say initially, everything you say there, I agree with, and I have a lot of thoughts on it. And I did recently record a podcast, I think it's podcast 19 of mine, where I discussed a lot of this, and I don't plan my own podcasts a great deal. The whole point of my podcast was I think of something, and I do just ponder nutrition a lot. Whatever I'm doing, if I don't have something else in my head, I will ponder something that has been going around, and I will think a lot, and I just think that's wasted information. And so I just have ended up switching on my microphone and recording stuff. And again, the feedback has been phenomenal in terms of it's just very conversational, chatty, and just learn something in a bite-sized way, a very absorbable way, and also, and I suppose in a rounded way, just me talking around the subject, giving people, I suppose, connecting dots for them. And so that's kind of what I did, a very spontaneous recording of this. And the response has been kind of crazy. Like my DMs, I can actually think of one specific DM from a very qualified individual who I'd never spoken to before, by the way. This is the first message he's ever sent me. He's very well qualified. He's almost more qualified than me. He's done that many degrees and certifications and qualifications, and he's gone down the route of intuitive eating, health at every size courses. He's even done some of these kind of social justice courses around weight stigma and these kind of things. And he listened to it and said, I just had to reach out to you about this because, and he said exactly what you just said, Paul, that there is now the anti-diet realm has just gone too far already. It's relatively new. And maybe that's why it's gone too far. There aren't very many realms that I've been around at the start of. Something is new, and I suppose, like if it fits your macros. Yeah, actually, at the beginning of when that came around, people took it to an extreme and just were like, can I just do a diet with only ice cream and whey protein and lose body fat and compete in bodybuilding, etc.? So yeah, it was an extreme. The anti-diet extreme, there are big proponents of this. There are people writing books. There are big social media profiles. There are leaders. And realistically, those leaders are not good leaders. They are, I don't even know a good parallel to give them. They are just, zealots is the only way I can do it. There's someone who, I'm sorry for this. The only parallel I can make is like a Hitler leader. And I know often when you use Hitler in an argument, there's some sort of high-level debate thing where if you use Hitler as a argument, you immediately lose. But anyway, that's above my knowledge. My point being is they are so extreme, they have no understanding, and they are just gaining followers by being ridiculously extreme and divisive. And so therefore they do get cult-like followings, but it's not something that ever can find a middle ground. And that's why the kind of Hitler reference is horrific, because there's no middle ground of that. But what you said of all dieting is categorically immoral, and anyone telling anyone or helping someone, meeting them where they're at and wanting to change their body fat level or their body weight or their body shape is immoral. That is the anti-dieting realm. And this is the problem with science meeting social justice. Social justice isn't as robust as science. There is some science within it. We can study some of the effects of stigma. It's been done a lot more within realms of like racism than it has within weight, for instance. But we do have some underpinning knowledge of those areas. And just to flip this on its head, for your listeners and anyone who ends up kind of listening to this, is some of this stuff does need to be listened to, but it's difficult to, because these people are so obnoxious and so self-righteous, and they're not, like, for instance, I'm aware of conversations that go something like, you are helping people lose weight. You are hurting people. It is wrong. You don't understand. And again, they're not even trying to understand what the person doesn't. You know, even people talking to me, it's very patronizing. Like, and I'm like, you actually don't realize that I'm very well read. I have friends in these circles of health at every size, you know, practitioners and leaders, I guess. And I am, like you said, you have, I think, I don't know if you use the word compassion, but this compassion for the fact that you use toxic dieting. There are really, really things that we need to help our clients stay away from, because they're incredibly damaging. And those are super common, super real instances of people crying because XYZ, and it, you know, being horribly mentally affected, but then the release from it being a big thing. And often some of these people become practitioners, and the problem is they don't account for their bias, that for whatever happened in their life, it made them that way. And it was horrific and it was horrible. But it doesn't do that to everyone. And there are different ways of doing things that don't lead to the same result. But anyway, people talking this way as though they know something that no one else does. But when you provide a counter-argument or any level of challenge, the conversation can go and is going something like, I don't care what you say, you are thin and you will never get it. And to add to that, I am abundantly aware of conversations where it goes even, I don't care what you say, you are white, you are male, and you are thin, and there is nothing to learn from you. And this is the problem with social justice-esque stuff, because I'm not an expert or particularly knowledgeable on racism. I'm not even, I've spent a long time now being interested in the feminist movement, and some of it interests me. And as someone who has a daughter, I want her to have equality and not be mistreated because of her gender. And, there's the toxic feminism stuff that people discuss. But the problem is when someone can literally say to me, you're irrelevant, Martin, because you're white and male and thin, naturally thin, whatever that means. It's just a joke. It doesn't deserve any discussion in the public domain, because you can't, it's this judgment of, I'm anti-diet, and you can't say I'm wrong because I'm fat. You can't say I'm wrong because I'm female. You can't say I'm wrong because I'm black, which is ridiculous. I'm not having a discussion based on every of those things. I'm talking about, let's discuss science. And even if that's not randomized control trials, let's discuss the effect that stigma has, that we do have data on. And yes, I can see your point of view, but you can't then go, these things which have incredible, like BMI. I did that post on BMI, which you probably saw, which just got this, and it did annoy me, because you have on one side personal trainers going, Martin, I can't believe you're saying BMI is good. And I'm like, just read the caption, you idiot. Like, I'm not saying that BMI is good and it should be used for everything, but don't go, BMI is absolutely useless. Someone came on and said, well, actually, The Rock is obese on the BMI, so that shows it's wrong. And I think I was a bit annoyed, so I just replied back, actually, the BMI doesn't work on people who inject anabolic steroids, so I think you need to update your knowledge. It was just a bit facetious, but it's just ridiculous that someone would put that forward as an argument versus what I had said in the video in the post. But then flip on its head, people going, BMI is a tool of oppression and therefore it is useless and should never be used. Again, ignoring the fact that I literally said, don't use BMI on an individual level as a marker for absolute health, because it's ridiculous. But at least acknowledge where BMI is useful, rather than just becoming completely non-evidence-based and just wanting to shout the loudest about your agenda, as it were. So, yeah, the anti-diet movement, your personal trainer followers and listeners, the thing I want to say to them is, do your best to be reasonable and be the bigger person, because at the same time you have to remember that if someone is fat, if someone is from a background where they have been mistreated because of a characteristic, they often have a chip on their shoulder. And you can, if you are trying to act with compassion and be agreeable and be open to debate, you have to almost accept that you are the bigger person if you don't have a chip on your shoulder, which some people, that will get their backs up. Oh, you're saying I've got a chip on my shoulder. I'm not saying it to insult you. I'm not saying it to put you down. I'm saying that because of your life experiences, you now have a bias. That's called a chip on your shoulder, colloquially. You fight back, you get hurt more, you get triggered more by these conversations. I don't, because I haven't had people be nasty to me as much as you. You know, I literally posted a picture on my story yesterday because I've been weight training more and doing a little bit of dieting. And I just had someone randomly just give me abuse about how I looked. And like, I know, and not in an arrogant sense, I know I look good. I understand I am, this whole thin privilege. This is becoming such a weird podcast, but I love it. I understand that, and on an average level, I look the way lots of people would want to look. I don't think I'm great. I don't look at myself and go, oh, look how beautiful I am. Look how muscular I am. I am of that bodybuilding mindset of I'm small. I want to be leaner. I know that's me. I always want to be bigger and leaner, and that's me. But I understand how other people will view me. But I just had someone reaching out and just giving me unnecessary abuse. I've never spoken to this person, but they just must have clicked on my story and gone, just being nasty about how I was out of shape. I was like, wow, amazing that people do that. So imagine I was in the overweight or obese category and had high levels of body fat percentage, and the nasty comments they get. So yeah, I want to say to kind of personal trainers, nutritionists, doctors who are new to maybe this area, to go, if you want to open these discussions, you actually have to just humble yourself a bit and listen to them and give them a bit more of a break. Treat them like a child. Like, don't be purposely patronizing and provocative, but just go, look, sometimes they just need to just shout a bit and feel heard. And then maybe there can be that discussion. Now, I'm not enough in the realm of the anti-diet movement, but I hope maybe some of my words over the next year will be heard by some of these leaders, and they will, in those movements, and they will realize that actually they're going to get nowhere. Like, all they're doing is creating rifts, a bit like the keto crowd. Keto has some unique benefits. It's and the vegan zealots as well. Like, all these things have worthwhile elements to them in discussions, but people end up hating them. Or like CrossFit, that's another one. Like, let's go away from diet a bit. The zealots make people then fight back against it and just say nasty stuff because they're just so sick of the extreme or untrue claims that people are making. So, yeah, in summary, I do agree with you that it's just becoming something that has merit, but it's just being ruined by people. And so the good people need to see through that, get rid of biases, and actually have some understanding of both sides of the coin.
You know, you said this podcast got weird. I want to go back on something that you said. Feminism. The card has been played a couple of times to me lately. It's the first time I've actually encountered in the last 12 months that I'm white. So I need to acknowledge all the privilege that I've had. And I generally don't respond. I generally don't pick up the stones that somebody else throws at me. Yeah. You mentioned Orly, your daughter. Yeah. And, you know, I assume, and again, not to put words in your mouth by any means, but you'll raise her to put herself in a position to contribute her unique talents, equality of opportunity, to put herself in a position, irrespective of her gender, to succeed and triumph, as opposed to get a high position because she's a woman.
Yeah,
that's something. That's a stance I would like to think most reasonable people have.
Mm.
And I think it does come at when movements that are at the baseline a good thing become exactly what you've just said. Your immediate knee jerk is to push back a little bit on perfectly valid movements, because none of us like being told what to do and I was born in 1990 to two Irish parents. That doesn't make me anything based on my own skin color. It's such a nonsense argument. I just want to shake people that hold these opinions, because I just think it stops people from reasonable discourse. So I wanted to touch on that part in terms of just the Orly thing first, because that's generally how we're contributing to society in a healthy manner. The other thing I'm intrigued by is, am I the only one who thinks that it's manners? Not being a dick and stigmatizing people on an individual level is manners, and it's what my parents told me to, be nice to people, judge on character and nothing else in every context. I actually don't like patronizing my clients. I think there are considerations to be made, like you're possibly in a position where maybe your self-esteem is low, or you have been stigmatized. Really valid things. However, I'm not going to patronize you because I see you as another human being capable of making progress, and if I mollycoddle you and baby you and tell you the world's out to get you, you don't have a chance on changing. Curious to know what your stance is on that.
Yeah, it's God, there's so many things that you said there that just made me think, but there's such huge discussions.
If you don't agree, you can hang me out to dry if you want to.
No, I do agree, and it's just like, oh goodness, where to go? It's like, it's a super, like I said, it's gone weird, but I love it. This is kind of the stuff that I don't have avenues for discussion, which is why it's cool to have my podcast, but I haven't, I suppose, gone down any of the feminism stuff on my podcast, because it's just, I still feel like I'm learning and it's something I'm interested in. And but even just these things of, well, I was going to say, like, so Jordan Peterson, obviously love him or hate him, I think he's very, again, he is Marmite. But again, this idea of, recognizing your privilege, and what you said there about just don't be, often there's a thing of like, you can't be rude if you are the oppressed. You can't be wrong if you are the oppressed. You can't be racist if you are the oppressed. And these are just made up things. People say it like it's a fact, like, no, you can't, a black person cannot be racist. And this is why the thing of just going, Martin, your opinion doesn't matter because you're white male. Like, you can't be sexist as a female because females are oppressed. And it's mental, because it just totally takes away from personal responsibility. Like you've just said, it's like, it's personal responsibility, whether you are rude and abusive, and it's this, I strongly hate that the world is going this way, to this point where I guess maybe it's questioning my paradigm of personal responsibility and treating people as individuals, which I really dislike, because it gives people license to just be horrific humans, and some sort of social construct that they and their cronies have created allows them to think it's okay to be that way. So again, with clients, I think, yes, there's a you don't have to treat someone hugely differently, but I suppose in terms of, like, mollycoddling, but I think that's coming from a person like you, who's a very, very reasonable individual, a very reflective individual, from what I see of you on social media. But you flip that on its head to a younger you even, and a younger me, but someone even who maybe wasn't as reflective as I have a feeling you probably were, or maybe even, I don't know if reflective, maybe insightful is the word I'm looking for, because there are the fitness industry. I have people come back at me and go, look, Martin, can't we all just agree and just be nice to each other, and just everyone's got different opinions, and we're all in this for the same reason. And I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. We are not all in this for the same reason. Not everyone is in the fitness industry for the same reason. Not everyone has a different why, but categorically some people's why is make money. And some people are super honest about that, which is quite cool. I like it when people can be honest about something that like that, which isn't seen as particularly honourable. But honesty is honourable, and if they are honest about that's their why for doing something, great. Some people love doing business. Now, if they do business and ethically, but their real why is making money because that's where they find some joy, cool. But the problem is when there's this guise of, I'm in the health and fitness industry to help people lose weight, and I want to help people, but that isn't their true why. Like, I didn't get into the industry to help people. And people are like, oh my goodness, that's so shocking. But that isn't why I got into it. I got into the industry because I loved science, I loved physiology, and I loved muscles. So from a very, very, very young age, I, for whatever weird reason, was obsessed with muscles. And who knows what put that into a young boy's mind of like, but again, it's maybe media, it's maybe the portrayal of strong men, it's Greek gods, whatever made, but even aesthetically, physically looking at them, I was like, their muscles are cool. I like the way they look. And then I liked that, and then I was good at sports, so I liked that, and then I, was interested in sports science. But then for me, nutrition was, I was so obsessed with how it can change the body. So then I became really good at it, and then I competed in natural bodybuilding, and that made me more interested in how powerful it was. And then I became knowledgeable, and people complimented me on how much I knew, and that made me feel good. And that became part of my identity. And then I was working in sports performance. That was my main thing, and making people stronger and faster and changing their body composition. Yes, I was helping them. Yes, it felt great when they were like, thank you so much, as it does with anything that people do. Whether you're a doctor or a beautician or a mechanic, it's nice when people say thank you. So that's great. But it was never to help people from a really compassionate thing. But at some point in my 20s, I went, this is pointless. I don't care about someone scoring a goal. I don't care about someone running faster. This is rubbish. And the more I then started working with people and actually helping them and making them happier and seeing the way that nutrition was hurting people, I found a new why. And so, again, people understanding that how you treat people, there are many, 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 many nutritionists, personal trainers, whatever, who they get a new client and they use their bias, but they put their beliefs on what they should do onto the client. And this is what we teach within the Full With Honours program. On our case studies weekend, we get them to do consultations and these case studies of clients and start recognizing their own bias, and even watching poor consultations and seeing stuff like the word presumably often comes up. Oh, and presumably you want to XYZ. Oh, presumably this is the case. Oh, and do you want this? Rather than just asking very, very non-pointed, non-leading questions, very open. Because if you look at the experiences, for instance, of overweight individuals, people always assume that they are doing something to lose weight. Oh, why are you eating that? Is that because you want to lose weight? Oh, why are you coming to me for coaching? Is it because you want to lose weight? How much weight do you want to lose? Before they've even said weight loss is a goal. And I think, therefore, treating people differently is important sometimes, just from treating them as an individual and not assuming that every person who looks a way you wouldn't want to look, for instance, wants to look different even. Not assuming someone always wants to gain muscle. Oh, you want to go to the gym? Okay, let's build some really big glutes. I don't want big glutes. I've spoken about this with personal trainers before, at personal trainer conferences, of a woman comes to them and says, I want smaller legs. Now that's her choice, whether she should think that or shouldn't think that. and I say that from the point of view of people go, oh, the fact that she wants to change the way she looks she's just she doesn't really think that. She's been made to think that she should think that. That's what the anti-diet crowd would say. That she's just a victim of diet culture. And it's straight away, any woman who wants to change the way they look, for positive or negative or whatever reasons, is it immediately wrong and is sort of patronised and shouted down for wanting to do that. But these personal trainers going, okay, cool, right, what we're going to do is we're going to eat like this, we're going to eat this much protein, and so we're going to do some squats and this, that, and the other. Well, why are you having someone who wants smaller legs do the exercise and the same reps and set scheme and intensity as you are doing as a male who wants bigger quads? Why are you doing that? Well, just because that's how I program for everyone. Or going, but surely she doesn't actually want smaller legs. She wants leaner legs. No, what did she say? Smaller. Now, did you go to the next level of why? Did you go down a route of questioning? But they don't. They just assume and they don't treat people differently and they put their own bias onto other people. So, again, I've kind of spoken a bit around your question and stuff, but it all ties into the same, coming back to the same premise of like I said, bias. It comes back to the premise of how you should treat people and talk to people as clients or just other people in general. But yeah.
I like what you said a moment ago about hurt. You used the word hurt about nutrition was hurting people. It's definitely something that I can relate to. It would be my initial why. And, I think one thing we have to get better at doing as an industry, as a human race, if you like, is allowing mistakes to be made, allowing errors of thought without excess judgment. I know we're quick to point the finger at people who do stigmatize, but I was once under the assumption I wouldn't have ever considered myself a fat-phobic person, certainly not overtly. Maybe, internally we all carry our biases, but certainly never be the one to tell somebody how they should look. But internally I would have been thinking, like what you said, everybody is looking to change their body comp. Everybody is looking to be leaner or stronger or fitter. And it wasn't until... Well, initially, when I realized nutrition was hurting me, was all the advice I was getting was opinion. And I never took that personally. I just realized everybody was just projecting. I'm doing it, we all do it, subconsciously or otherwise. We all project from time to time. It's how aware can we become. And in terms of allowing mistakes, the more people I've gotten to work with, the more I realize that people are victim, maybe not be the right word, but the question of assumptions. I would have assumed such and such a person wants to change because they are in such and such a position. And I've really learned as I've gotten older, as I've gotten a little less stupid, as you say, or as one would say, that not everybody wants to change. And we have to, in my opinion, allow people to make these errors of thought, errors of judgment, without necessarily judging them as well, so that people can grow and, as you say, remain teachable. Because if you come at me and say, Paul, you're promoting fat loss, you're a terrible person, I am initially going to go on the defense, as you've alluded to. But if we can remain teachable and think, okay, well, the only way to increase your knowledge base is to probably accept there'll be flaws in the way you express your opinion, there'll be flaws in the way you express yourself, and some people won't like that. But if you remain teachable, we can make this industry and collective society a much better place. I know it's a little bit idealistic thinking, but I think it's now more than ever, it's an absolute necessity to accept there will be absolute errors of judgment, errors of thought, errors of word. We have to allow people the courtesy of assuming they can explain the intent with which they speak, as opposed to just going on the defense all the time, because otherwise I think we're destined to continue to project negatively what's going in our minds, throw rocks at each other, a battlefield, and it's just going to continue like so.
Yeah, there's three things I've written down just as you were talking, and it's like intent, judgment, and cancel culture, and it goes back to some of what you were talking about earlier. But in like intent for me is where, like, I'm someone who likes dark humor. I'm someone who likes and it's where I get myself in trouble. And it, I'm a huge fan of Ricky Gervais, for instance. Like I posted a quote of his that was something like, "Stop saying you can't joke about stuff. You can joke about whatever you want, and it's other people's choice whether or not they get offended." And then he uses a lot more profanities, which do make it more funny. But he's like, and then you can decide whether you give a about the fact that people are upset. And it's, you know, you kind of have your own choice. And then, you know, he makes all these funny jokes about people just coming onto a Instagram page and going, I'm offended by what you're saying. And it's like, well, just don't follow me, just move on. But people forgetting about intent. So, and straight away jumping in. And, you know, people use these words Karens and whatever, but people jumping in and they just need to realise they're not making any difference to anyone. Like, I remember I said something in this good couple of years ago, and 2 or 3 years ago, I shouted to a couple of female members of staff. I was like, "Oh, girls, come in here and look at this," and I got this, like, it started this whole thing of like, that's not you. I can't believe you're calling them girls. That's derogatory. This, that, and the other, and they were getting offended on behalf of the girls. And they didn't say it in a teachable way. They just wanted to shout and be nasty. And because I believe I am a very reflective and open-minded individual, I went back at these individuals and took the mickey out of them. But in the real world, which people forget there's a real world and social media isn't real, I said to them, out of interest, just because I do care, and because sometimes there's unintended consequences of I care about how my staff feel. I was like, did you mind me saying girls? Like, I've never thought about the terminology. And they were like, no, of course not. It's ridiculous. And I was like, okay, cool. I just wanted to check, because what if I didn't realise? Because my intent is not to offend you. It's just the way I speak. I even went back to some of these people on the internet. I was like, what should I say? And they were like, you should have said ladies. And I was like, that sounds weird. And I said to my staff in the office, I was like, if I shouted, ladies, come in here, they were like, no, that sounds a bit creepy, like, ladies, hey, ladies. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm glad we're on the same page. But it's intent. They knew I wasn't saying that in a derogatory way. You know, this, that, and the other. So intent is always the thing, like making jokes about whatever. The intent is just to bring humour. Sometimes you make jokes about horrific things. You know, I know a lot of comedians say this. It's like, I make jokes about these horrific human traits to basically highlight how absurd things are. Like jokes about racism, it's like to show how absurd someone is for thinking that person of a different colour is worse than they are. It's a joke, it's laughable. I'm not trying to be offensive to a certain colour of person, and I'm not also trying to play down racism. I'm making a joke about racism because it's so laughable that people are so stupid that they could be racist. You know, and I mean overtly racist. I'm not going to get into the discussion of whether we are or aren't inherently racist and whatever, but the overt racism of people who out there actually believe that they're better because of their skin colour, they are complete morons, in my opinion. And then there's this thing of judgment that you mentioned of, I have said this many, many times, but the last few years I have tried to make myself the least judgmental person. And I don't know what the trigger was actually. But it is this whole thing of like not judging people and trying to give people a second chance, in that when people say something stupid online, I don't like it when it's to do with nutrition and I think they should know better. So more often than not, that's doctors. I don't like when I see a famous doctor doing what I think they should know better than, misleading people, saying stuff that I know is incorrect but also harmful. And in those instances, I find it hard not to give them a second chance. I find it hard to give them a second chance because I think you should know better. You have academic training, you're old enough to know better, etc., etc. You have the physiological underpinning knowledge, you should understand science a bit more. But reasonably, I think if they were to get into a debate and could listen to the other side and actually be educated, I would happily accept their change of stance. But this is when I struggle, is when people have been given a chance. And there are the bigger instances of me calling certain individuals out in the industry, and they have had many, many times of being shown that what they are doing is incorrect and wrong. And, and I build this picture of myself of actually they are immoral. They know they are doing wrong, but because it's making them money or giving them fame, they continue to do it. And they've only stopped doing that. There's a nutrition course out there that I've called out many, many times. And until it started, I went really hard on it because of how immoral I believed them to be. And because they had this chance. But then they changed and said, once it started hurting their bottom line of money, they updated to be more evidence-based. And everyone's like, oh, isn't that good that they've done that? Now me, I am in that position of, no, it's not, because I don't believe they've done it for the right reason. I'm trying not to be judgmental, but it's very difficult from what I have seen and observed of it only changed after many, many instances of being able to see that what they were doing was wrong. And actually it's only through a driver of greed that's the case. But in this whole judgmental thing, it's like, I think a big thing for people is like, letting people live the lives they want to. So here's the thing that I think a lot of your listeners might find challenging, because I've found it challenging, but have come to terms with it now. Choosing to be healthy is not a moral choice. Choosing to do exercise, choosing to eat well, doesn't make you a better person. People do not have to choose to be healthy. And I think for a lot of people in the health realm, that's not, everyone should do that. That is the right way to live. But it's not really for us to say that. And likewise, a good way to conceptualize it is like smoking. Okay, people shouldn't smoke. It's just wrong to smoke. It's unhealthy. Why would you do that to your body? It's not up to you. It's not up to me. Okay, well, someone who smokes, if they get cancer, they shouldn't get treatment. They've chosen to do that to themselves. You don't deserve it. Okay, cool. If that's your belief, you like race car driving, which is inherently dangerous. You like skiing, and like, I don't really understand. I've never been skiing, but like, you like skiing on difficult slopes. There is an inherent risk in what you're doing. So if you crash and break your leg, you don't get an airlift out. You don't get treatment. You chose to do that to yourself. That's your fault. Yeah, but it's not. That doesn't, wait, what? No, it's exactly the same. You chose to do something that's dangerous, that has a high potential to damage your health. I didn't mean to do it. Well, someone who's smoking isn't smoking to get cancer. They're smoking because of whatever reason they have. So when you start putting some frameworks on stuff like that, you go, geez. Like for me, it's been years that I've been sort of working on this thing of like, oh, wow, you can't actually put your constructs of morality on other people. This is so not a nutrition podcast, is it? But it's cool. I actually love these discussions. This is more of just talking about like what stuff I like to discuss that isn't nutrition. But it does all connect, doesn't it, to the weight stigma stuff. It does connect to how we treat people as clients and others. And, I love, maybe it's a strong word, but really like social media and enjoy, that's probably a better word, really enjoy social media and lots of parts of it. But again, how people treat people on social media and how they should use it, it's an interesting discussion. And then the last one is just cancel culture. Someone says something wrong, like immediately, no, they don't deserve to talk anymore. And in every realm of the world, people are like, no, they made a mistake, therefore they must lose their job. They must be fired. They must be... And again, I just hate it. It's just stupid. It's like people, mainly famous people just getting absolutely ruined for one mistake. Even if they apologise or go, do you know what? My intent wasn't to be, I can't think of but I just remember the headline, but it's like, I didn't mean to be anti-Semitic, or whatever the word is. And that wasn't my intent in that statement. And even if it was just a poorly timed joke or whatever, and it wasn't the place or the time or the place, but instantly ruined, cancelled, job lost, this, that and the other, people going after them. And it's just amazing, like someone who has a relatively large, moderate following, but also who is within my industry. I am, it sounds weird to say it, but a celebrity, as in not in a good way, but am well known, immediately it's like all eyes on you. It's like anything you do, oh, this, that, and the other, oh, you're a bad person because you called this person out, and oh, they got really upset, and now I hate you, and you said this, and I think that's sexist, and etc., etc. And it's just like, I just made a joke. And in my circle of friends and clients and colleagues, they know my intent. It was never to offend anyone. And if I do make those mistakes, but it's like, no, cancel culture, you're wrong, you're bad, therefore everyone should do X, Y, Z. And it's just a bad way the world's going, in terms of it just doesn't create dialogue for positive change.
Well, similar to you, I love conversations like this too. I do prefer this kind of stuff than just talking about, baseline nutrition principles.
Macros.
I mean, there's only so much you can talk about macros before you spell the fucking word carbohydrate to not run out of content. And we've actually touched on quite a bit today that I would love to talk more about, but I'm a little bit intimidated to cross that line, to cross over into more social topics, partly because I'm not an expert, and someone smarter than me probably could pull apart my opinion.
Yeah, me too.
With better reason of thought or evidence, if you like. And also partly because, I won't lie, I'm a little bit afraid of the idea of the backlash I would get. I have no problem standing up for something I inherently believe in if I have a solid reason to believe it's true.
So true.
Yeah, and if I've just realised, I've had that Dunning-Kruger effect where I did a bodyweight cut in 2014 and got myself a little 4-pack, and I ran around telling everybody to drop their carbohydrates.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And the best lesson I ever got was, you're an idiot, shut your mouth, and go learn shit. But do you know what, you like talking about this kind of stuff, so I'd be more curious, do you ever worry about your call-outs? Do you ever worry that you are actually going to suffer some kind of repercussions with cancel or call-out culture, and that, I know you're saying, you're trying to be less judgmental and you're calling out things that you believe to be fundamentally incorrect and unethical, but do you ever worry that it's going to result in the kind of the toxic cancel culture that we're seeing? Not this kind of healthy debate, but actual Martin McDonald off the internet.
Yeah. Two things. One, with the judgmental and stuff, when I call some people out, a lot of the time, at least more recently, I have publicly said that I apologise for some of the ways I acted in like 2000 and early 2000s, because I was in a bad place, and I was still calling people out who were misleading people, and their information was terrible. But I was almost getting this a kick, I don't know a better way of saying it, a kick out of making them feel bad. And it was me projecting, you used the word projecting earlier, it was me projecting my hurt in, you're wrong, you're an idiot, I'm better than you, because I was not in a good place in my own life. But nowadays, when I call someone out, I do it from the sense of, and I do it in a different way for a start, but it's not through judging them, it's through, no, this is wrong, these are the facts, and it's a lot more logical, and it's maybe, I still make jokes, and I'm still human, and I still make mistakes, and like I said earlier, I can be facetious or sarcastic in my responses. I'm definitely not a saint in any sense of the word, but I do try hard. So that's just one thing to say, is I'm not necessarily judging them, and I do try to see that maybe they do believe that. And I think in other podcast interviews I've said, look, I think this person really, I call people well-meaning idiots. And again, I say idiot, it sounds like such a strong word, but we're all idiots. I say humans are idiots, and people are like, oh, well,
I listen to that as a term of endearment and think, oh fuck, I'm a well-meaning idiot here, haven't I?
Yeah. But I think, and we've all been well-meaning idiots. I was a well-meaning idiot at 17 when I was telling my dad how he should eat for his health condition based on government guidelines. And I now know that literally what I was saying was the opposite of what he needed to do because of his specific health condition. I was a well-meaning idiot. There are well-meaning idiots everywhere on the internet who they've found something, they've had a religious experience. Guys, you were a well-meaning idiot just a minute ago when you said, I cut carbs, I lost weight, and I went around and told everyone. You meant well. You wanted to help people with that information, but you were an idiot. And so you're not out to harm people. Your intent is good and pure. And I wish people would be less of well-meaning idiots. I wish there was some way of schooling people so that it was like, look, before you go start talking about something, just sit back and listen to the conversation for X amount of time till you really go, like, question it. So anyway, when I call people out now, it's like try and give them that well-meaning idiot point of benefit of the doubt, and often that is difficult because from what I've seen over a long time, longer than most people have been in the industry, there's often a big thing of money and fame and that kind of stuff. But anyway, on to the main topic of the questioning. It's funny because you say, are you ever worried? Do you think this could ever happen? Like, it has happened, and I have been sued multiple times because people, as soon as it starts harming their business, in America it's a lot worse, and I have had to spend thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of pounds defending myself. Unfortunately, I've never lost, but what's win or lose? I've never won in those situations, and actually that made me very bitter because there are all these cretins across the internet saying Martin McDonald's all about money, and I post my nice car, and people are like, oh, he's all about money, oh, he's all about flash, and it's like, no, I'm not. I'm so not flashy, but I really like cars, and I also have a flamboyant personality to some extent, not hugely, but I like brightly coloured clothing, and I'm not embarrassed to just express myself. So I wear stuff that I like or I think is cool. I'm like a kid. Like, everyone goes, oh, you've got these high top trainers, oh, they're really cool, where'd you get them, this, that and the other. The story is I went shopping for Orly and Arlo for some shoes, and I saw some red, blue and yellow shoes, and I thought they look cool, a bit like a kid seeing a glittery, shiny, like they look stupid, like for all intent and purposes, what's cool, what's classy, what's suave, they're stupid shoes. But people look at me in them, and I get compliments, in the sense of people like, wow, they're super cool, when people are being nice. But on the flip side, people are like, oh, you're trying to be cool. Like, I have a bright turquoise car, and people are just like, oh, and I like it because it's expressive, and it's just, I really like turquoise now because it's my brand colour, and but I don't think I'm better than anyone else because I have X, Y, Z. But people going, you've got this nice car, you're all about money, or your business is successful, you're all about money. But they don't see anything else. It's this judgmental thing that I'm talking about. It's the idea of, what did I do? I took my staff away on a staff retreat, and it's like a team building thing. I do it because I really want my staff to feel valued, and they're marking exams, and exam marking is flipping boring. And I got a message from a woman going, well, this is disgusting. They see us there at this nice hotel. This is disgusting to see this waste of money. How much money have you donated to charity? And I was like, wow, what a thing to take away from me, spending money that I could literally have paid myself as a dividend, and taken myself away and bought fancy stuff and done stuff that's purely selfish and self-serving. But I do it, this money, spend it on my staff to do this thing, to reward them for all their hard work. And that's the response I get. And then again, this instant, I've had people who and it hurt. I don't really care. Didn't care what that woman says. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm just like, wow, what is wrong with people? But sometimes it's even people who I've mentored and I've supported. And when I got my car, there's one particular individual who I had done so much for her, and she messaged one of my staff saying, I've had to unfollow you all because I find it, I don't know, like vomit inducing or something, this money grabbing thing of, oh, it's just all about the money in this car, and it's like, wow, I just got a new car. Like, is that wrong? Like, if someone posts, me and my partner have just bought a house, or I've just bought a house, sorry, as an individual, no one goes, oh, look at you. Or maybe they do. But just because it's a car, it's suddenly like, oh, this is flash and whatever. And people say this stuff, but yet they don't see the tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds that I have either lost through doing the right thing, through having integrity, through all of the different TV programs I've asked to be on, to present, to do this, that and the other. And I've challenged the producers and deals with different food companies that I've been offered ridiculous money to promote things, and I've gone, no, this is wrong. Like there was a recent probably about 18 months ago, TV program where they were essentially going to put parents and children on extreme diets, and it was something about my fat child, or my parents made me fat, or something was the thing. And for TV viewings, they were going to put the parents and the kids on this diet and do this, that and the other. And I was put forward as the expert to basically be the nutritionist on this show. And it was, it's crazy money per episode to do this kind of thing. And so if I was all about money, straight away, boom, there you go, happy days, bit of fame, all the stuff that the fame then leads to, etc., etc. I would love to be on TV influencing, being a person of influence on that level. But I went back and spent so much time telling them how bad of an idea this was, and how they should not be doing this, and how it was going to harm, and how they should never be doing X, Y, Z. And obviously I got cancelled. That wasn't going to be me. And the person who took my place was a registered dietitian who goes on and does this stuff. And it's like, does she get any abuse for this? No, she doesn't. One, she's female. Two, she doesn't have my personality, which people find abrasive, as in I'm too confident, therefore I must be arrogant, and I'm too successful, there I must be arrogant, and whatever. But they don't see that. So one, it's not that I worry, it's that it has already happened to me, and it does happen. And two, yes, it's constant. I try not to worry about it. Like I have quite a stoic mentality about things, in terms of, like it's the whole thing of like a man who worries today about something that hasn't happened is like paying a debt that you don't even owe. It's just, there's no point. And I do change some stuff. I do hold back a little bit on social media, just because I'm like, what need is there for this? I don't need to record myself saying this unless I really want to create a discussion and create change. I don't say stuff on social media. But there's always a constant thing of, like, even this podcast, right? I've talked about racism, I've mentioned Hitler, I've talked about feminism. I know I have so many haters who are, even when I use the word feminist, people are like, oh, Martin, well, I thought you would be a feminist, seeing as you have a daughter, and blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I don't identify as a feminist. The same way as I don't identify as many things, I don't have to put it in my bio to be one. When I talk about a feminist, it's someone like you who goes out and tries to have arguments with people about this. And I don't even use feminist as a dirty word, which it has become. I try to create different words for, like a keto person. It's like, well, what is that? And then I make up this like, oh, you're a ketard or whatever. And it's like, oh, everyone who does keto is a ketard. And I'm like, no. Someone who does keto and understands the premise of it and doesn't make all these unfounded claims and try and mislead people or profit from it, you're just someone who's doing the ketogenic diet, and that's up to you. But it's the people who go out to mislead and who say that science is wrong and how energy balance is completely irrelevant. Those people are the people that I'm calling out. So again, yeah, I don't worry, but I am abundantly aware that just people are constantly out to get people through, whether it's jealousy or projecting their own thing, and it sucks. Like, look at all of the suicides that are preventable if people were held accountable for what goes on in the media, what goes on social media. It's a horrible realm, and the whole, people using like the Be Kind hashtag, and yet their whole life is spent. I have DMs full of just nasty, abusive people who just for whatever reason I've triggered them, and they just want to be heard and they want to be abusive and this kind of stuff. So it is horrible. And I sort of want to say to people, it's like, bear that in mind. If you try and get a big social media following, that is an inherent part of the internet and social media. And you need to be. I'm thankful that I've been doing this for a long time. And, you know, back when Instagram wasn't a thing, back when even Facebook wasn't a big thing, back when internet forums were the way that people interacted, and they kind of died a little bit of a death. I know that people will say stuff on the internet that they wouldn't say in real life. I know that stuff's just meaningless. And like, even just going, like, one of my close friends found on the internet a discussion about me and loads of nasty stuff being said about me. And they were incredibly hurt. And it like really affected them, like really, really badly. They were so upset, and because of the extremeness of it. And I was like, stop reading it. And they were like, yeah, but I can't believe this. And I'm like, stop reading it. It's the internet. I said, the only way that stuff's bad is if it's true. I'm like, it's just playground stuff. Like, words do hurt people, but you have the personal choice not to let them hurt you. I'm at my podcast that I'm actually releasing tomorrow, is about Viktor Frankl's book, The Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if you're aware of it.
Yeah, amazing book. I love it.
It's such a good book, and it's that whole thing about man's last privilege is that he can choose his response to any given set of circumstances. And it's like, I don't have to let that affect me. People need to realise words do hurt people. Sticks and stones actually repair. Words can mentally scar someone forever. But you don't have to let them hurt you. And people saying all this stuff about my children and all this, that and the other, it can be hurtful, but it's like, it's just the internet. And if someone chooses to believe that, like sometimes there's that whole thing of like, oh, it's going to damage my reputation. People are questioning my character. I don't like that. I am a people pleaser. I want people to like me. I like being the centre of attention because I like making people laugh and making them happy and being the centre of attention. And therefore I want everyone to like me. And I know not everyone will. And I teach that in terms of people going, I'm scared to put stuff out on social media. And I say, if it's part of your business, you want to be an online coach, you have to. And therefore, you're going to have to be unapologetically yourself. And there will be people who don't want to work with you, and there will be people that do. And that's the best case scenario of whether you're fat or whether you're thin, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you have a six-pack, whether you don't, people will identify with you as a person. But you have to put you on the internet, on social media, on your website, so that people can choose to work with you as a person, and not worry about the people who don't naturally like the way you are. You can be as nice as you want and people go, oh, you're fake. You know, like when you see these people who are super, super nice, it's like, oh, they're fake. And it's like, no, actually, some of these people are just that happy all the time. They're not being fake. And, you know, that's that thing of not being judgmental at the same time. So, yeah, a super long-winded answer to your question, sorry, but it's... I know that goes on, and it's not worth thinking about because it's not in your control. So there's no point, you know, it's like that diagram that you see posted. Can you know, is something going wrong? Yes. Is it in your control? Yes. Okay, do something about it, change it. Is it in your control? No. Forget about it. It's irrelevant. Like, worrying doesn't change it. So yeah.
Do you think it's a case then, in many respects, that literally an kind of healed person, an unobserved life, an unreflected existence can trigger a kind of reaction from somebody, and they can find any reason to take anything personally and leave any comment on the internet? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, listening to this, I've no attachment, I've no emotional attachment per se to your situation. I can listen to it and I can almost remove myself and pretend, oh, well, this is what I would do if I was in Martin's position, but I don't have 2 children and a worldwide nutrition company, say. I think it's just a case of an unhealed existence and people taking things personally, projecting one feeling of one moment in time, and then almost just that projection of what's going inside, and then moving straight on with their life, unaware of the consequences that they're probably leaving out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really fully thought about that. I suppose
I'm also aware of your time, Martin. We're at 90 minutes now, so you need to dart off. Just tell me to stop recording and shut up, mate.
No, I'm good. I don't think I imagine my PA would run in and say to me if I had a thing. Let me just look at my phone here of what
I won't keep you much
Oh
longer.
yeah, no, cool. I
formally wanted to ask you after this. So.
I'm so glad you said that. I actually am interviewing for a new role in 10 minutes. So yeah, we've got 8 more minutes.
Okay, well, I have one actual practical question. It genuinely was probably the reason I wanted you on. So.
Okay.
Okay, I have probably been influenced by you more than any other practitioner. There's one or two others that have talked about this for years, and you're probably the freshest in my memory. And I've actually used it with a couple of clients because it was a challenging of my bias, because I used to be under the illusion that aggressive deficits was kind of blanketly bad. Now, I didn't think I wasn't going around saying don't diet, it'll fuck your metabolism, none of this nonsense. Yeah. I just more made the assumption it was bad for all people's psychology kind of all the time. If you like.
Nice,
kind of fed back into the yo-yo diet mentality. You're going too low and you're going to spring back out. Yeah. And then I saw you talk about it, and I thought, okay, well, I mean, this character's worth listening to. So I started employing it with clients based on, well, what do you want to do it? Are you hungry? And then I started saying something, and I like your line better than mine, but you give people the unconditional permission to eat anything they want. I've kind of, in a sense, try to merge those two concepts of people who tell me they want to do an aggressive caloric deficit. I want to go aggressive, but I have unconditional permission to break the restraints of this protocol if the situation is correct, and then resume as normal or decide to come out of it. So I just kind of want you to share with people, because this is mind-blowing information to a lot of my audience, on why an aggressive period of caloric restriction can actually be a good thing, and it's not going to fuck metabolism and ruin your psychology and destroy your relationship with food, assuming, of course, you're already in a decent psychology to undertake it in the first place.
Yeah, cool. So
7 minutes, go.
Got it. Yeah, perfect. So I'll give you all the headline answers. So it is interesting, and I totally am on board with you that I was the same, in that aggressive deficits, people liken them to fads. And I guess some of these shake companies, I won't name any, but the shake companies that people are put on these aggressive deficits, and they almost always rebound because there's no coaching. It's someone who wanted to sell them a supplement to basically make themselves money, not actually help the person. And for whatever reason, people are against them, and I totally get it. But when you look at the evidence, and you take the paradigm of MLM companies selling shakes and then very low calorie diets, etc., and you put it in the construct of Paul Dermody coaching a client to do it and working with them and giving them various things like unconditional permission to eat anything. So people struggle with that term because it's like, well, how is that possible? How can you lose weight? I'm going to eat donuts all the time. No, you can if you want. You give yourself permission to do that. Okay, I will. I'm going to eat 20 donuts. Cool. Happy days. How do you feel? Well, it's not taking me towards my goals. No, I know. But you're allowed to do it. You are the master of your destiny. Do you want your goal, or do you want 20 donuts? Okay, I get it a bit more now. Yeah, cool. You can eat those things at any time and any amount you want. It's your decision. They're not bad. You're not immoral for doing so. Don't have guilt. But what do you want more? And you have unconditional permission to, as really nice terminology, go outside of the constraints of the protocol that you're doing. Because it's not, the protocol is a protocol, therefore it has constraints. But the protocol is in situ in time, and this is why I talk about multi-phasic strategies. You can go through a different phase of, if we talk about calories maintenance or aggressive deficit, or even a moderate deficit, or even a slight surplus, etc., etc. But once you look at the physiology, they do not destroy metabolism. And so, and what I will say is, I've done multiple podcasts on this, shorter podcasts on this, on my own podcast, because people are so interested in this. And 2, I'm actually, if people go and log onto my website and just stick their email address in, I am in the process in the next month or 2, considering I have an aggressive dieting lecture that I delivered at a conference. And it's you can already go buy it, I think, on the Mac Nutrition Uni website, but it's like £45. But I'm thinking of doing like I did with my PCOS talk, just going like, because so many people are interested in this, and it's, learning more formally with all of the references, all of the discussion around it, and a bit more of the nuance. I'm thinking of just going like, right, for this period of time, it's like 90% off or something. So just for people a heads up, because I am time constrained, people can just follow me on social media and I'll talk about it, or put your email address in and I'll email you if it happens. And I can maybe send Paul the link to put in the description to that. But it's when we get round to, okay, what's the physiology of it? It doesn't screw metabolism. And there's multiple instances of, and this is the big one, right? Dieting, no matter the size of deficit, carries the inherent risk of changing your relationship with food. The size of the deficit is not and has not been linked to outcomes of disordered eating. It's simply the preoccupation. You can eat at maintenance, orthorexia. You can eat at maintenance, but eat clean foods and demonize foods and give yourself issues and poor relationship with food. You don't have to be in a deficit to give yourself a poor relationship with food. People who are diagnosed with celiac disease, who have to forcibly remove gluten from their diet because it damages their health, but they don't want to, and they have to change the way they eat, and it's not a choice, and they're not empowered to make those choices, are more likely, statistically more likely, to end up with disordered eating and eating disorders because of that. They weren't doing a calorie deficit. They literally were just changing the way they ate. They could eat gluten-free bread instead, but they couldn't eat those things, and they were out of their control, not allowed to eat them anymore. This unconditional permission to eat, you can eat any foods in your aggressive deficit. There are foods that will make you feel better than other foods, but you don't have to cut out any foods. You're empowered to make those decisions. Your deficit can go up and down. And here's the kicker. Time and time and time again, there is empirical data. The literature shows that these very low energy diets make people less hungry than moderate energy deficits. And that, for me, is the thing that needs to be discussed, because hunger frigging sucks. And if you are hungry every single day to reach a goal, it's taxing, it's wearing. And therefore, when I aggressively diet, and I don't like n=1 instances, but my experience is mimics, because this is the other thing. For some people, it won't work, and that you have to bear that in mind. That this isn't a prescriptive be-all and end-all. I just want to bring it to the table, and that's all I've ever tried to do. Is you can choose any approach, but don't kick this one out because of a belief you've got through misinformation. But when I diet aggressively, I have no hunger, and it is easy. So I'm losing body fat at a very fast rate, and I'm not hungry. That's the holy grail. Versus someone who's taking twice as long, 3 times as long to lose as much fat as I am, but every single day they're hungry. And the problem is you drop 500 calories, I'm hungry. I drop 800 calories, I'm really hungry, I'm a bit more hungry, and I can eat less food, and it's less filling, and my stomach feels less stretched. I drop 1,200 calories, I'm really hungry, and also I can eat less. I've got less flexibility because there's less calories to choose different food options. It sucks, until the point where you get to this, unfortunately, slightly undefined realm, which is why you need to be reflective and have a coach or have someone who can help you through this, to the point where you get to that utopia of, and for me, as an 80 to 95 kilogram individual, depending on whether I'm bulking or not bulking, etc., I'm eating 900 calories a day. And people are like, oh my goodness, that's crazy. Like, I've got a 55 kilo female client eating way more than that, etc. Okay, cool. But I can train the way I want to train. I feel good. My mental clarity is good. And I'm losing body fat a crazy rate. And I'm not hungry. And that's the conversation. That's the, okay, until I get to that level, I don't get that impact of hunger just being removed. So that's like a super. This is the other thing. Like, you can maintain muscle mass on that level of weight loss. You can. It's quicker, so you're dieting for less. So you can go back to maintenance in half the time if you've got double the deficit of someone else, and therefore you can, that can benefit your training or whatever. So that's like I suppose that's a real teaser of big headline statements for your listeners. And as I said, they can listen more and find out more elsewhere. But hopefully it just at least questions their bias.
Yeah, and you also understand the principles of training volume. And, you're not doing a stupid home HIIT workout, and
I'm not doing CrossFit whilst doing it. Yeah.
Exactly, 100%. You don't have all the negative connotations and the sound bites that most people pick up. So I really like the fact you say it's not a prescriptive suggestion, but more so don't throw it away just yet. But dude, I'd better let you get out of here.
Cool.
1 hour 45 minutes give or take. Obviously, you want people to check out your podcast, Not Another Nutrition Podcast, which people will do. Also, your course, mnu.com, correct?
Yeah, mac-nutritionuni.com.
mac-nutritionuni.com. Look, I'm extremely grateful for your time. I have very genuinely, I'm sure everybody says, I loved having you. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I could actually talk to you about social shit for a lot longer.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, no, it's been, like I said, it's the most unique podcast I've ever done, and I've genuinely just felt like it's been an enjoyable chat in a coffee shop. So thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. Well, you can put me back onto the bottom of the next rotation of podcasts you're willing to generously offer your time to.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Look, thanks so much, man. I hope you have a great day, and I want to wish you the best of luck with everything to come, and keep doing what you're doing, providing I would say being a positive influence. We won't use the dirty I word, but just challenging us all to be better practitioners, and leaving the fitness industry in a healthier, more critically evaluated place.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Speak to you
All the
soon.
best.
Thanks. Bye.